I could not believe that he just asked us that. He asked if we wanted to jump off the building. Now, not the really small one on this end, because that's only the Statue of Liberty. Not the Eiffel Tower either. No, he wanted to jump on the one that's on the very left, the highest one over there. Oh, it's high. So we're sitting around, and my son Devin is like, that would be so fun. Let's go do that. And my other son, Sam, and his girl were like, not a chance am I getting up there and jumping off a building. And I asked, like, bungee jump off the building? No. So what, like, keeps us for being okay when we hit the bottom? And basically it's like a zip line where you are hooked up and yeah, you jump and it's okay, it's fairly safe. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I think between the moment I said that I will do it until I landed back on the ground again, including when I was in the air, I went through a constant indecisiveness. Nope, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it at all. But I did it. And after I landed and we were leaving, I stood at the entrance to the building and looked up and took a picture of the image. And actually, if you're here, it's the image on the front of your bulletins. And I added some text so we can do hard things, because it felt like a hard thing. And I put it on the wallpaper on my phone. So every time I pick up my phone, what I see is we can do hard things with a reminder of the hard thing that I did. The thing I wanted to run away from, the thing I decided I didn't want to do, but I did. And I got the phrase, we can do hard things, from Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. She tells this story. When she was in her early 20s, sitting on the bathroom floor, found herself holding a positive pregnancy test. She's like, I can't do this. How did I get here? And she found herself arguing with herself, and a part of her was like, we can't bring something else into life, into this world, and you don't like living very much anyway, Glennon. How can you bring in more life? And she was thinking about it. You know, from the time that she was really young, she had avoided anything hard. She had bulimia by the time she was 10, and somewhere along the way, she started drinking. Instead of facing hard moments, she found herself finding ways to plan her binge and purge, figuring out where she will get her next drink. And she said she never had a hard moment in relationships because alcohol took care of any relationships she might have had. So she didn't need to do any hard things. And here in this morning, she finds herself sitting on a bathroom floor with a pregnancy test in hand, the hardest thing. And she knew she was going to do this hard thing. So she got up off the bathroom floor, a little stumbly because she was still drunk from the evening before, and stumbled out into her new life. She said about 5 days in her 5th AA meeting, and she finally decided she wanted to talk, to share a little bit of her story. And part of that, she just said, this is so hard. I don't think I'm doing this right. There's no way life is supposed to be this hard. It's too much of a struggle. And after the meeting was over, a woman came and sat with her, said, I'm going to share this story with you because somebody shared it with me and I found it so helpful. She said, life is hard. It's not hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because you are joining the land of the living. Instead of numbing out and getting rid of all your emotions, you're feeling them all. It's supposed to be hard. Life can be hard. And she said, feelings are for feeling. Glennon said it never occurred to her before that feelings were made for feeling. She thought happy was made for feeling and the rest of the emotions were made for numbing, turning off, and avoiding at all possible costs. So she left that meeting knowing that she was going to leave and feel. And as a third grade teacher, she had to walk her classroom to the lunchroom every single day. And she said she would take the long way around to her classroom so she could go by another classroom. And in this other classroom hung a poster, and in big, black, bold letters it said, "We can do hard things." In Glennon's life, that became a mantra. Every time she wanted to go back to binging and purging and avoid the hard things, she would tell herself, we can do hard things. When she felt like turning to a drink, we can do hard things. Through her day, we can do hard things. And as we come into the season of Lent, in some ways, that's our mantra. We can do hard things. When I was bowling this week, I had a conversation at the table. I brought up about Ash Wednesday, and one of the women at the table was like, I was raised Southern Baptist. I don't even know what that is. And the guy sitting next to me said, I was raised Catholic. So I wonder if my understanding of it is the same or different than yours. And we started talking about this concept of Lent and what is it. And I was curious, so I asked the Catholic, and what is it that you see in this season? How would you describe it? And he described it as this season of 40 days and 40 nights, minus Sunday, when you take away something in your life. You give up something. And then, except for Sundays is a mini Easter, so you can do whatever you want on those days, but the rest of the days, you give up something. And that's about right. That feels right. It sounds right. But I said, that feels like the practice of Lent. But why would we do this thing? Why spend 40 days doing something different at all? And as we continue to talk, I said, this time is a time to really focus and recommit to our relationship with God. It is a time to deepen our faith. It's one of those things that if we all the time focus this intently and tried so hard, we would eventually be exhausted just trying. And in some ways, that would pull us away. We could never focus at all on this commitment to deepening our relationship with God, but then we're sure to be pulled off of that relationship by the world pulling us in so many different directions. So we spend this chunk, these 40 days, every year to remind us who we are, to really refocus on God and God's call on our lives, And yes, we do that, and we can do that by giving stuff up. And I've heard it described, if you give up chocolate for Lent, what you do is every time you wish you had chocolate, instead you turn to prayer. It's a nudging, it's a reminder. I'm probably more prone to add things during Lent, actually. You can add things like journaling every day, adding prayer, finding prayer beads and praying with those. Some way, every year, to take 40 days and 40 nights to refocus on God, to recommit ourselves, to really examine ourselves and to know where we are. And it's hard, but we can do hard things. And we know that we don't do it alone. And in fact, Jesus has a story. Hear these words from the Gospel of Luke, from this time that Jesus spent in the wilderness. Now Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wild. For 40 wilderness days and nights, he was tested by the devil. He ate nothing during those days, and when the time was up, he was hungry. The devil, playing on his hunger, gave the first test. Since you're God's son, command this stone to turn into a loaf of bread. Jesus answered by quoting Deuteronomy, "It takes more than bread to really live." For the second test, he led him up and spread out all the kingdoms of the earth on display at once. Then the devil said, "They're yours in all their splendor to serve your pleasure. I'm in charge of them all and can turn them over to whomever I wish. Worship me, and they're yours, the whole works." Jesus refused. Again, backing his refusal with Deuteronomy, worship the Lord your God and only the Lord your God. Serve him with absolute single-heartedness. For the third test, the devil took him to Jerusalem and put him on top of the temple. He said, "If you are God's son, jump. It's written, isn't it, that he has placed you in the care of angels to protect you. They will catch you. You won't so much as stub your toe on a stone." "Yes," said Jesus, "and it's also written, 'Don't you dare tempt the Lord your God.'" That completed the testing. The devil retreated temporarily, lying in wait for another opportunity. May God bless the reading, hearing, and doing of this word. I love that so many faith traditions talk about this wilderness time. This time when we're struggling and really, really present to who we are and who God is in our lives. So Jesus in his wilderness time is coming to an end, and the devil comes and tempts him. But Jesus is hungry, starving. 40 days and 40 nights. And the devil says, you don't have to be hungry. You do not have to feel this hard feeling. You do not have to desire food. You don't have to desire anything. Simply turn those rocks to bread. Jesus says, "I remember who I am. I remember whose I am and why I am here." We can do hard things. So the devil says, "What about all the kingdoms? I have power and control over them. You can have power and control over them. You can dominate all of them." When the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the keepers of all of the rules try to pull you back in line, try to tell you who to be and how to be, you can have power and control over them. You can dominate. Jesus says, "No. I know who I am. I know whose I am. We can do hard things. The devil says, oh man, it's gone. Kent, what's the third thing? Oh crap. There was 3 temptations. Jump. Oh yeah, that one. Jump. I remember now. I'm like, wait, I knew there was 3. The devil says, go climb to the top, the peak of the temple, and jump off. Everybody will be able to see God's love, God's power in your life. Show off. The angels will catch you. You don't have to worry about it. Jesus says, I remember who I am. I remember whose I am. I remember my calling. We can do hard things. There are so many ways and times and moments in our life when we are given 2 options. We can sit with the hard feelings. We can struggle with them. We can walk into grief. Or we can shut them down, turn them off, numb out, turn to alcohol or Facebook or being too busy or a million other things. But our call, especially through this season, is to remember who we are, to remember whose we are, to remember that God has a call on our lives and that we can do hard things. Glennon, after years of living into this mantra, gets a phone call from her mom. You need to come because Grandma is dying and you need to come say goodbye. So she goes and she sits at the bedside of her dying grandma. She touches the statue of Mary and the prayer beads hanging there. She holds her grandma's hand. And all of those feelings, she says they just crash over her. She feels all the grief. She feels all the sadness and the hope and the loneliness. And she said she didn't turn away this time. She just sat with the feelings. She let herself feel all the feels. And sitting there, she realized that today it's her grandma in the bed and her mom standing on the other side of the bed. But at some point, it will be her mom in the bed, her daughter holding her hand, and her on the other side of the bed. And one day she's going to be the one coming to the end of her life, holding her granddaughter's hand, with her daughter standing beside her. And she realized in that moment that the we can do hard things is all of us. We can do hard things. We can sit generations and friends and church and relationships. When we get there, we realize we all encounter all of the feels. We get to be in there and find the depth of life. And that others are there just waiting for us. Because during this season, we are called to remember who we are. We are called to remember whose we are. We are called to walk forth through this journey remembering that we can do hard things.